Hi, I'm Dr. D. Leitner, and welcome to the Doctor's Den, where I interview friends and former students to hear their stories, learn from their personal and professional growth, and hear about how they are engaging politics, strategy, and leadership in their everyday lives. I know that one of the things that you had as like a very important thing was family. Like, I know that you wanted to have like family in your life, whether it's finding a husband, having kids. But you faced some serious challenges there for yourself. Like, it wasn't like, oh, so easy for you. And the fact is that in and of itself, I think probably didn't that change who you were in some ways? Like that whole process of
Yeah.
getting married and like what happened as a result of that. And
Absolutely.
if you could go into like, I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, absolutely. I thank God I met my husband in 2016. He's really the best human in my life. I'm very grateful. I actually met him through friends, through Bar Ilan, so more involvement of the Bar Ilan side in there. And we got married in 2016, and then we started trying to have a kid. And then about a year and a half later, we were like, something's not right. It shouldn't take this long. And I started going to doctors, and I discovered that I had infertility issues, and I ended up diving into the world of IVF in this country. One of the things that I'm extremely grateful for is that we live in a country where, having children is really important. And it's one of the core values of the country. So IVF is very, very, very heavily subsidized. There's this misnomer that it's free. It's not free. You do pay for some things, but it's definitely significantly cheaper than it would have been in any other country that I tried to do it in. And 3.5 years after I started treatment, I was blessed with my beautiful son. It was a journey. It was difficult. It took a really long time and a whole lot of needles. Um, but at the end of the day, it was really worth it. And I came out at the other side of it with, the greatest gift of all. So,
Yeah, I'm first of all, Mazal Tov, and that's amazing. Because that's absolutely amazing. But you also shared a lot of that journey. Like, you were open about that journey in some ways, weren't you? Like, it
yeah,
wasn't something you hid from the world.
I was actually pretty private about it in the beginning. I was really ashamed. There's a lot of shame that comes with it when you're inside of a religious community where having babies is like the pinnacle. Like you must have babies in order to have value. That was kind of the feeling that I had from a lot of our friends, from family members. It was this push of like, when are you gonna have a baby? When are you gonna have a kid? What's the holdup? What's going on? And it kind of led me to be very silent actually in the beginning about my process. I was very embarrassed on some level and ashamed on some level that I couldn't do this most basic thing that every woman's body is designed to have children. Why isn't mine doing it the way that it's supposed to? And there was quite a bit of shame involved. I hid the fact from most of my friends at work had no idea. Only the people who were closest to me in my life knew that I was going through this stuff. Which is amazing that they stuck with me because honestly, the hormone injections made me a little bit of a psycho. And it just kind of took. It was quite the process for me to start opening up about it and sharing on my journey. But I recognize that 1 in 5 women have the PCOS that I have and go through the same fertility challenges that I go through, and hundreds of women were in the same clinic as I was every single week, dealing with the same injections or dealing with the same blood draws and getting an ultrasound 3 times a week in order to reach this goal of like the ultimate goal of wanting to have a baby. And it's it's an experience that I feel like if more people talked about would have been less horrifying and shameful for me. So when I finally had my baby and I felt like I was in a space that was safe enough for me to share, I opened up about it, and I was honestly floored by the response that I got. I had dozens of people reach out to me, men and women alike, who were going through the same process and wanted to understand where I found my strength and how I got through it, and to ask advice and how does the system work and who should I contact and which doctors do you recommend, and I had X number of miscarriages and I don't know how to move forward, or I'm on round number whatever of IVF and I don't know how to move forward. And I just kind of shared my own experience, and I thanked them for sharing with me, because if you don't share, then there's no way to remove the shame. And I felt that it was really important to me that shame stigma be removed from the situation.
Totally, 100%. So it sounds like you found blah. I can't even talk straight. It sounds like you found yourself as an activist by default. Like you opened a door, and Ro became an activist again, but this time for something which was much more personal, right? Would you consider yourself now an activist for this as well?
I don't know if I'm an active activist for this. I'm more of a passive activist. Now that it's out there in the world, I do get messages once in a while from people who are like, "Hey, you mentioned once upon a time that you went through IVF, and I'd love to pick your brain and understand how things are going."
Mm.
Actually, it's been a really interesting experience to have people come to me. It's almost a year later now since I've shared. My son's birthday is this week. He'll be one, which is
Oh,
crazy.
happy birthday! Oh my
But I'm still getting messages. But
god,
yeah, it's crazy. But
that's crazy.
a lot more passive. It's really been more of a trickle down situation at this point, where people are, when they feel ready to reach out to someone, I've become somebody that's safe to talk to. Um, it's a big load to carry when you're talking to somebody about their fertility journey, because it's very private, and a lot of people don't want to share, and a lot of people don't feel comfortable sharing it even with their closest friends. And really taking on that responsibility of like, I'll hold your secret, and I'll hold strength for you. It's really something that I had to learn. It wasn't easy. But to be on the other side of the journey gives me a lot of perspective.
Um, what was I'm gonna ask this kind of strangely. What was the politics of IVF for you? Like, how did the ideas that were so important to you start clashing in relation, like in this world of yours, where like you said, I lived in a world where this was the thing, like you have babies, and I couldn't have babies, and like what were you going, like? Could you share that a little bit? How you were dealing with that?
Yeah, it led to a lot of like spiritual upheaval for me. On a personal level, like a lot of the things that I believed in were called into question. Of like, prayer is supposed to work, and faith is supposed to help, and it didn't seem to be helping for years. I went through a lot of personal pain to try and get to a space that was really quite natural. um, so, for me, there was a lot of like personal work that I had to do to like re-understand the way the world works for me.
As someone who has gone through it successfully, as someone who's gone through it successfully, I'm assuming you would recommend this to other people, even though it's can be a very traumatic experience in its own right. Um, could you talk a little bit about why you would recommend it, or can you even like give me some of the politics, like internal like debates that you might say, hey, this is kind of the debates that people go through, or I've gone through. Here's why I would still recommend it, even when, for
Yeah.
instance.
I went through an interesting experience where I was like, my community had tied my value to my ability to produce children. Between friends or family or whoever it was, you didn't have value until you had children. Once you got married, the assumed next step was that you're going to have children. So I personally went through a lot of conflict of like, where do I stand if I can't have children? Who am I as my own person? If this is what my family looks like, is this something I could live with? And there was also like, a lot of guilt around, how I'm impacting other people's lives, with my ability or inability to have children, including my husband. Like, my husband didn't have any problems; it was all me. How do you deal with that kind of situation? And it was definitely an internal struggle of like figuring out who I am for myself, and then who I could be if I did choose to grow my family. And I went through that initially before I even started treatments. It was this whole like, who am I as a person? Where do I stand? What is my value? And then on top of that, I came to the conclusion that yes, I did want a child, and I was willing to go through whatever it took to make it happen. Um, Not connected to my value at all. It was just something that I wanted to have happen for me. So I did start treatment, and I do recommend it. I do think that um, engaging in the miracle that is modern medicine, that is science, and allowing it to play that part that's missing, really, it's a gift, and especially in the state of Israel, where it's really gifted. Like, anybody can start, before a certain age, and you can really just do it. There's really nothing to lose in starting, except for maybe some hope. My main recommendation, honestly, is to make sure that you take care of mental health in that process, because it is challenging and it is difficult, and your body goes through a lot. I know that I still deal with the implications from that process in my current life, but it was amazing to watch other people care. The medical professionals that I engaged with and the people around me who were supporting my process. It really gave me an opportunity to experience help from others, which is something that I was never really good at doing. Really, like, accepting assistance and accepting help. And it taught me to view the world from that perspective of, you're allowed to ask for help when things aren't going well. You're allowed to get support. The support is there, so you may as well ask for it. And that's kind of, shifted my worldview in that sense as well. In that I learned to say, please help me. And I learned to say, there are things that I can't do myself, and there are things that I can't control. And then to look for the support around me in the world that I've built for myself, in order to move forward, regardless of my inability to do it on my own. And through that, honestly, it's built, stronger relationships. It's improved my relationships with my family and my husband. It's improved relationships with my friends who truly showed up for me, and I let people show up for me, and that was kind of a new experience for me. And it also taught me more about who was really a friend and who was really a support system for me. And the people who couldn't handle it are the people who I'm not so much in touch with today, or the people who, I didn't need them to take up the extra space. So, it taught me a lot about life and about people, and about the people that I've chosen to be my family. So, it's kind of created a whole new world for me.
Thank you for joining us in the Doctor's Den. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Hope to see you next time.